What's going on, everybody, and welcome inside another edition of the Pay the Bills podcast. I'm Mike Bunt, joined by Carson Hayek. Hey, how you doing, Carson?
It's always a good day when the Bills are involved. So I'm doing phenomenal. It's been a great day today, and I'm looking forward to talk some Bills. How are we feeling, Mike?
I'm feeling great, and it's even better now that the Bills' schedule is officially out. Obviously, this show today, that's what we're going to be focused on. We're going to talk about our thoughts on the schedule. We're going to break down the biggest matchups, and then we're even going to have a little bit of a record prediction with Carson and myself here. We're going to go in depth, game by game. We have not gone over our predictions with each other yet, so I have no clue what he's going to be. And then, hell, I don't even know what I'm going to be at this point in time. But, Carson, let's first off talk about our initial reactions to the schedule that has come out today. What are your first thoughts after seeing the schedule officially released about 15 minutes ago?
I mean, first things first, we don't play on Christmas and Thanksgiving, which is, to me, it doesn't influence me as much as, let's say, like if it were to be on Christmas. But I will say I like the holiday games. It's a little disappointing to me. I know that's a little bit of an unpopular opinion as people love, hanging out with the family instead of, maybe watching the Bills. It's just another thing that they'd have to do. But I'm a little disappointed there's no Thanksgiving or Christmas game. But another thing, opening the season against the Cards, like what else can you want at home in Buffalo? Hopefully it's a beautiful sunny day. You absolutely know that stadium's going to be packed. It's going to be loud. Last time the Cards, came to town, it was a rough outing for them. Bills walloped them, and what else can you hope for? Marvin Harrison Jr. makes his regular season debut against us. There's a lot to be excited for. Then you got the Finns, the Jags, the Ravens, primetime. I mean, you get your primetime mixed in with some nice 1 o'clock games along with your 425s and 4:05 game. I mean, you get a little bit of everything. I'm loving the schedule and a late bye. Let's go.
Yeah, so let's pop up that schedule. I know we're going to kind of be in the side here, but as you mentioned, we'll just go game by game, and then I'll give some of my initial thoughts. Home opener, September 8th against the Cardinals, a 1 o'clock game. A lot of Bills fans, they love the 1 o'clock games. You get your wish to start the season. Then 3 straight primetime games, a Thursday night at Miami, then a Monday night 7:30 kickoff, not the traditional 8:15, 8:20 slot on Monday Night Football against the Jaguars. Sunday night at Baltimore, and then a really big surprise, a 1 o'clock road kickoff against Houston. A lot of people thought that was going to be a game that would be in prime time. Doesn't end up being the case. The next game for the Bills is prime time, though. Monday Night Football against the New York Jets on the road. So 4 of their first 6 games in prime time. That's quite the start to the Bills schedule. Probably the gauntlet that we see early on for the Bills. October 20th, home against Tennessee, then road against Seattle on the 27th, back home against Miami. Then you can see the second half of the season, Colts, then the big one against Kansas City, November 17th. That's going to be a 4:25 home game for the Bills. And you can see it ending San Fran. That's another primetime game. The Rams, Detroit, back-to-back 4:25 starts before kind of a weird end with New England twice in the last 3 games. So there you have it. That's what the schedule is going to look like this year. And let's first talk about the primetime matchups. Carson, what are the primetime games that you are most looking forward to? And are you surprised that the Bills didn't get a Christmas or Thanksgiving game in this schedule?
I mean, I'm a little surprised because, we've been in the Thanksgiving game lately. And also, I believe we did play one Christmas game. It was against the Saints, I believe. No, that was Thanksgiving as well. So, I mean, I'm a little surprised by that, but the 4 out of the 6 to start on primetime is definitely something unique in our schedule. It's a gauntlet, like you said. I mean, you got the Finns, you got the Jags, the Ravens, the Texans, like no pushovers in that. Those are all going to be good games. The NFL knew what they were doing, but I'm excited for the Finns game. I mean, we're not going to have to deal with, the 110-degree heat stroke 2 years ago. And I'm also excited for that Jags game. Monday Night Football at home. That place will be packed again. And there's something about Monday Night Football games in Buffalo. It's just growing up, obviously, I'm a bit on the younger side, so we sucked and we didn't get a ton of primetime games. But Monday night in that stadium, I there's something about it. I just love it. I love it.
Yeah, I am never going to apologize about my love of primetime games. It's a little bit more stressful now that I'm in my early 30s. I have to work the next day. It's not just fun going out, partying, having a good time. Now there is ramifications for that type of behavior the next day. But I love the primetime games because if you're playing in primetime, it means that your team is very good, unless you're in a major market. But for the Bills, if you're getting 5 primetime games, it means that you are a hell of a team, that people want to watch you. And obviously, it's the Josh Allen experience. And I want to talk about some of the primetime games that kind of pique my interest the most. I got to start with the Baltimore game, Sunday Night Football, September 29th. That's a huge early season matchup. It could have been the AFC Championship last year had the Bills pulled off the ending against Kansas City. The Jets, October 14th, time to get some revenge against them after they upset the Bills in the season opener last year. And honestly, the biggest prime time on the schedule, December 1st, at home against the 49ers. That is just a massive, massive ball game. You're talking about the defending NFC champs. And it's funny, everybody was talking about how the beginning part of the schedule is kind of a gauntlet. And I can see it. You're playing Miami, Jacksonville, the Ravens, Texans, Jets back to back to back to back to back. So that's a tough 5-game stretch. The Bills have the Chiefs at home on the 17th, a bye week, and then the 49ers at home. That's the back. You're facing the two teams that were in the Super Bowl last year, defending conference champions back to back. So that's going to be pretty wild. But this primetime slate, what's interesting to me is back in the day when the Bills would get a primetime game, it was because the other team they were playing was a marquee opponent. Like they were playing the Cowboys or the Patriots. They were only getting primetime because of who they were facing. Now we're getting to the point where a Kansas City game is not primetime because they know they could put it at 4:25 and a ton of people are going to watch it at that time slot. You can pair them against the Jacksonville Jaguars and people are still going to watch. Like that's such a weird Monday Night Football matchup, Bills Jags, but here we are. So a lot of fun games, but what are the games to watch for the season? I'm not talking about which games are primetime. Which games on this schedule are you most excited about overall?
I'd say there's really 4 games that stick out to me. 2 of them are obvious. One's not, or the other 2 are not so obvious. My first one's obviously the home opener. I'm kind of a Cardinals fan. I've always liked them ever since they drafted Kyler Murray. I'm on the Kyler Murray bandwagon. Let's just say that. But Marvin Harrison Jr. making his first career start. Guy with generational talent at the wide receiver. You know he's going to make some big plays. And that's a game I think is going to be closer than what it'll actually what people will predict. So that'll be my first one. The second one is how can you not circle the game against the Houston Texans? Stephon Diggs, all that drama, him getting traded, whatnot, and how he's just kind of been petty and how the fan base has ultimately went from being in his corner that, oh, it's not drama, to now being on the flip side. And it's almost like he's lived to see himself become a villain, as some would say. My third game, it's got to be the Chiefs. That team is taking us out year after year. We take them out in the regular season, but don't do anything with it in the postseason. So when you got the 2 best quarterbacks in the game facing off, you gotta love that. That's prime football. And my last game of the season that I'd be really, really looking forward to would definitely be the Niners game on Sunday Night Football. Place rocking as usual, and West Coast team coming to town. So again, Super Bowl team, great matchup, and we'll see how that one turns out. It really can go any other way with Shanahan, Purdy, and company. So.
Yeah, it's really tough to narrow it down to just a few games when you look at the schedule. I like that you brought up the Houston Texans going up against Diggs. That's going to be a fun game. I know it's a 1:00 game, but that's going to be a must-see 1:00 game. That's definitely what I'm keeping my eyes on. Miami games are always fun. Thursday Night Football, week 2. That's one I'm going to be excited for. And what's crazy is we have so many marquee opponents. This is not an easy schedule. There's a lot of difficult games on the schedule. I never really worry about the opponents at this point because you never really know how is it going to play out. But you look at how many teams have the capability of making the playoffs in this schedule? You look at Miami, that's 2 games, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Houston. The Jets have playoff possibilities right there. If you want to add the Colts into the mix, then obviously Kansas City, San Fran, the Rams, the Lions. You're talking about 12 of these 17 games are against teams that really have playoff possibilities. So there's not many gimmies on this schedule. It'll be fun, obviously, to see the Bills play Detroit once again. They had a great game on Thanksgiving a few years ago. My must-see, if I had to pick the must-see games, for me, it's the obvious ones. KC, November 17th in Buffalo, chance to get I don't even want to say revenge because it feels like the Bills dominate the regular season games lately. They've won 3 in a row in the regular season, but they never win at home. And those 3 wins have all been in Kansas City. So it'd be so nice to see the Bills defeat Kansas City in Buffalo. And then San Fran, that's a marquee opponent. Been to 2 of the previous 5 or 6 Super Bowls. That's going to be an exciting atmosphere in Buffalo. So those are the 2 games I am definitely looking forward to the most. And if you had to have one off the cuff game, I would probably say Houston because of the Diggs factor in that. But I do like that you brought up Arizona because I think a lot of Bills fans are going to go into that game assuming that the Bills are going to just destroy them. And maybe the Bills will. But we got to remember how people across the nation might think. Kyler Murray is back for them. They're going to be better than what they were last year. The Bills have lost a lot of players this offseason. I don't necessarily think that the Bills are going to be down this year, but I do think there might be enough people betting-wise that might have their doubts that line could be 7.5 to 8.5 points. So I don't necessarily think the Bills are going to kill the Cardinals week 1, but I am kind of glad that they picked a softer opponent to start out rather than giving us somebody like San Fran or Detroit right off the bat, because I don't need that week 1. I don't need that week 1 stress. But let's keep it going here. We talked about some of our initial reactions, primetime matchups, games to watch. What do you think when you look at the schedule? What is the most important thing, do you think, in terms of the Bills? Do you worry about short rest? Do you worry about how these games line up, about when you're on the road, when you're at home, weather, stuff like that? Or do you think that's more just stuff that we talk about and we overthink once the schedule is released?
Yeah, I mean, weather and especially time too. When you're going to the West Coast, we're playing the NFC West this year, so that's a considerable factor. That it typically takes 72 hours or so to acclimate yourself coming to or from the West Coast. So that's a big factor in how we're going to play. I'm not that concerned about it, but I feel the thing I'm happy about is the Bills have a later bye week, and especially with the team that kind of struggled with injuries last season, that can do wonders. So if you can get some of your key guys back who are banged up, or you can get that rest for the guys who are sore so they can be ready for your big games down the stretch, and especially the postseason when you need them most. That is very important to success. But as far as that goes, like I'm thrilled that we don't have to play Miami in 100-degree weather, and that they're going to have to come here towards the second half of the year and deal with our weather, because they have struggled with that. They're like 2-20 or something like that when the temperature is under 40 degrees. So that's a huge advantage for us, huge, especially in the division race that could be tight this year.
Now, is there anything here within the Bills schedule that that worries you as far as how these games are stacked up? Are you worried about the start of the year at all, or Kansas City and San Fran being back to back? Anything that scares you or intimidates you at this point?
I'd say probably the first 5 to 6 games. I mean, that's difficult. This is a team that's got a lot of youth to it, so they don't necessarily have the experience on them together per se. It's kind of like when new offensive lines come together, they got to feel each other out with chemistry, and they got to mesh together. So I think we all ultimately, I find Arizona is almost the perfect week 1 opponent for us. We're a better football team than they are. However, they're not so soft to the point where I think we're going to take them for granted. Not that it happens as much as people say in the NFL, but they're good enough to the point where they should give us a good challenge here. and make it a close game. But it's one that I think the Bills should come out with, and you get your tough divisional opponent in the Miami Dolphins. That should be a great game. I still think we own the Dolphins, so we should take that one. But then you get Jacksonville, who had a really, really weird season last year. And then the Ravens and Texans. Those are two games that are crucial down the stretch. So the Bills, in my opinion, have to start at least 3-2. That's a really difficult stretch. If they can start 3-2, I think they're going to be in good shape for the rest of the season and the way it'll shape out as playoffs occur.
Okay, so we already talked a little bit about it, but let's get into the most exciting part of the show. We are going to pick the Bills record going game by game. Like I said at the beginning of this, I have no clue what Carson is picking for the Bills. I have no clue what I'm picking for the Bills. I've been telling everybody going back to last December that I was going to pick the Bills to go 12-5 this year. That was before all of the crazy offseason moves that the Bills have made. So I don't know if I still feel that confident. I don't know if I feel less confident, more confident. I know this is a difficult schedule, but let's just get started. We'll take it 1 week at a time. We'll give a little bit of a brief explanation on each pick, and we'll see where it ends up. Starting week 1, September 8th, 1 o'clock home opener against the Arizona Cardinals. Like I said earlier, I know a lot of fans are happy about having a 1 o'clock home opener, normal tailgate, an opponent that they should defeat. I'll let you start out, Carson. How do you have this game playing out?
I've talked too much about the Cardinals tonight. It's a Bills podcast, not a Cardinals podcast. Give me a win. That should be a good one. 10 points.
I'm the same. I'm not even going to spend that much time talking about week 1. I'm happy it's the Cardinals. It's a game the Bills should win. I think 10 points is a fair, safe margin, something like a 30-20 win for the Bills. Kyler Murray could scare you a little bit with your inexperience, some of the inexperience on this defense, some of the new guys coming to Buffalo, but I still think the Bills offense is going to gel even with a new wide receiver core. So both at 1-0. Week 2, Thursday night football at Miami. I think this game is going to be the first one that kind of gives us some clues how we feel about the Bills and how we think about their AFC East chances this season. How do you have that playing out, Carson?
The short answer is I have that as a loss. The complicated answer to that is we beat the Dolphins for the division in their house last year after they were falling apart. If you don't think they're going to remember that, you're full of it. They're going to come in with so much motivation in that game. Short week for the Bills, for both teams for that matter. But that's a huge game for the Dolphins. I think it's more important for the Dolphins than it is the Bills. And just because of that, I think the Dolphins are going to come out with a really, really close win that's gritty.
So I feel so divided right now. And and if you're enjoying this video right now, please like this video on YouTube if you're watching on the Trainwreck account or Bunt Takes, and please subscribe to both of our channels. We greatly appreciate it. I'm divided about this Miami game because on one end, I think Miami's a good team. I've been talking them up the last 2 years. I think they're scary. Tyreek Hill is one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. But on the other hand, when does Miami ever beat the Bills, especially in games that matter? Like they're good enough to put a scare in the Bills, but they're rarely good enough to actually defeat the Bills. Even the games when the Bills lose, it almost feels like the Bills do something incredible to find a way to lose. Like the game they lost in Miami a few years back where they're all having heat stroke. They had all these injuries. They still outgained Miami by 250 yards and barely lost in the end. You think back to Allen's rookie season, Charles Clay drops the ball in the end zone. Yes. So the Bills just don't lose to Miami. So I'm going to pick the Bills over Miami. I'm going to put us at 2-0. You have them at 1-1. And one thing I do want to talk about when we make these picks is we might be right on some games. We might be wrong on some games. Ultimately, all that matters is that we're close to that final record, which I don't know about you, Carson, but I've nailed the win total the last 2 years. So I've been very confident about this. I've been cocky about this. My friends give me a lot of crap because I remind them about my record predictions the last 2 years. So this is the year I either prove myself that I am legit at this or it all falls apart. Okay, let's go week 3, Monday Night Football, 7:30 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. How do you see it going?
That's going to be a win, I think, for the Bills. I am coming back home after the Fins game. You're going to have that extra, really 4 days because it's a Monday night game. So I think that's going to be a win for them. The Jags have had a team that's definitely given us a lot of trouble over the years, whether it was last year and then basically Jacksonville's home away game in London, and back when we played them during the Urban Meyer days. So that's a team that you definitely cannot take lightly. But I think this is a game that the Bills really come in fired up, and I'm going to say this is going to be a win by a touchdown or so. So
I struggle with the Jaguars. I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle because my normal strategy, if I'm going into picking the Bills record and I see Miami and Jacksonville back to back, my normal rational self is saying they're going to split those two games. They're going to go 1-1 during that 2-week stretch. But I already picked them to beat Miami, and it's a home Monday night football game, and we know how crazy it gets at Highmark Stadium when the Bills are in prime time. It's hard to see them losing a game like that under the lights against a team I feel like we're superior to on paper. I'm so tempted to pick a loss because my gut says 2-1 after 3 games feels like the most realistic scenario, but I just can't do it. I'm picking the Bills over Jacksonville, but I will say that is a game that could be an upset. Jacksonville obviously defeated the Bills last year in London. They defeated the Bills a few years ago with Urban Meyer. For whatever reason, Jacksonville gives the Bills problems, but I don't see them getting the win this year. I have the Bills at 3-0. You have them at 2-1. September 29th, Sunday Night Football at Baltimore. This is going to be a tough one.
This is a really tough game. It's all whether or not you can contain Lamar, because I'm still not really scared of anyone they have at wide receiver. So I'm going to say the Ravens take this one. Again, close game. Bills don't lose in large margins at all. This is going to be a close game. Ravens are going to pull this out in the classic Buffalo Bills heartbreak.
So right now you have them at 2-2. This is a little bit shaky to start the season, but absolutely within the realm of possibilities. I have this as the first loss of the Bills season. It's not that Buffalo can't defeat the Ravens. It's not that they can't contain Lamar Jackson. We've obviously seen them do so the last couple matchups. But the Ravens they're a difficult team to beat, especially at home. They've lost a lot of talent this offseason, just like the Bills. But Lamar Jackson, Sunday Night Football at home against the Bills defense that I think might have some difficulties at times this year. Are they going to be able to stop the run game that Baltimore has? The Ravens, when they have things going, they can be dynamic. We saw the Ravens jump out against the Bills a few years ago, and then obviously Buffalo figured things out, had a great comeback, won on a Tyler Bass game-winning field goal as time expired. I just don't have them with the luck on their side this time around. So I will give the Bills a loss, falling to 3-1, and you have them at 2-2. So next game after that, the Stephon Diggs game at Houston, 1:00 on October 6th. If you pick Houston in this one, Carson, there's going to be some people watching that are going to start to wonder about where you see this Bills team going. But I'm going to let you take it over. And what do you have happen in that game?
Give me a win. This is the Bills. We've kind of talked about this, not on camera, but it was kind of widely known through that locker room that there was some conflict with Diggs, and I think this is a great opportunity for the Buffalo Bills to go into Houston's building and say, Stephon, hey, we don't need you, man. We can win without you, like we did in this back half of the year, and we're going to do just that. So I think this is a Bills win in almost a dominating fashion. Give me a Bills win by 2+ touchdowns.
Yeah, so another game I struggle with because you look at the schedule. Could the Bills start 1-4? I mean, like technically they could. They could. But could they start 4-1? They could start 4-1 also. Most likely they're going to be around 3 wins through 5 games looking at this schedule. But when I see Josh Allen going up against Stephon Diggs in Houston, I can't see him allowing the Bills to lose that game. I can't see it. Josh is going to want to kick Stephon Diggs' butt. I would have said harsher language, but I don't want to make this anything more than a PG-13 broadcast. We're rated G right now. So I'm going to give the Bills a win. I think you're going to see Josh Allen. That's going to probably be one of his best games of the season. He's going up against Diggs, going up against that young Texans offense with CJ Stroud. Their weapons. I think Josh is going to want to send a message to Houston that I'm still one of the best, if not the best, quarterbacks in the NFL. You guys still have some catching up to do. So I'm going to give the Bills a win over Houston. Think it's going to be a great game. That could be a shootout, a 34-31 type contest. So I'm going to have the Bills at 4-1. You have them at 3-2, entering Monday Night Football, October 14th at the New York Jets.
Let's see. Now this is one that's really a flip-flopper to me because the Jets have always played us well. For whatever the reason, they play us well. They got Rodgers coming back this year. They made some big moves from Joe Douglas for the offseason. Give me the Jets on Monday Night Football.
So 3-3, Carson. No one can call you a homer because you are being completely fair right now. And to talk to Steve Noble's point, yes, the Ravens they're one of the only teams in the NFL that have lost more manpower than what the Bills have lost this year. So when I'm picking the Ravens over the Bills, it's more so because the game is in Baltimore. If it was in Buffalo, I'm picking the Bills over the Ravens. It's a road game. It's going to be difficult. I can't pick them to win every game, so I have to pick a few losses on the schedule. And then one other comment from Steve. I missed this early in the show, so appreciate you commenting, Steve. I actually like some of the tough games early because we will not be predictable because nobody knows what this offense will be this year. Love that point. It's a great unknown. And I actually ran into some stats from the Kay Adams show recently. I want to throw them out here. Under Ken Dorsey last year, the Bills averaged 25.5 rushes per game for 116 yards, and they ran 41.2% of the time. Under Joe Brady, they ran the ball 36.8 times a game for 156 yards and 51.6% of the time with a run percentage. 10% more runs, 40 more rushing yards per game, and about 11 more carries. We don't know what the Joe Brady offense is going to look. There might be an element of surprise. I definitely think it is not a coincidence that they've gone after bigger bodied receivers. I think it shows that there are going to be a lot of changes to this offense overall. Obviously, in the past, a lot of 11 personnel. Now with Kincaid and Knox, they tried some 12 personnel last year. They had success at times. I think they are going to try to use these bigger receivers to their advantage. So I like that point, Steve, and I appreciate you commenting. Now for my pick on the Jets game, Carson, I'm going to agree with you. I have the Bills falling to the Jets on Monday Night Football. This Jets team is going to be solid this year. If Aaron Rodgers is even half as good as what he has been throughout his career. I know everybody talked about last year, him getting hurt and the rest of the team looking awful. The Jets have done some nice work this offseason. They've improved on both sides of the ball. They've always given the Bills offense trouble. But if Aaron Rodgers can give them a little bit more offensive firepower, I could see the Jets winning this one 24-21, 27-24, something like that. So right now at this point of the schedule, I have the Bills at 4-2. You have the Bills at 3-3. They return home for a Sunday 1:00 game against the Tennessee Titans. I feel like we should probably be more comfortable about this game, but it is important to note the Titans have been active this offseason and have brought in a few talented receivers in Calvin Ridley and then in Boyd from Cincinnati. So maybe not the pushovers that we originally thought a few months ago.
Yeah, I mean, they're built around their young quarterback. Will Levis, he put a pretty solid rookie year together for all things considered, and they lose Derrick Henry, obviously, but they get Tony Pollard, which I think is arguably an upgrade at this point in the game. I know Pollard had a down year last year, but I think he's a guy who's going to fit well in Tennessee. And Tennessee, they're no slouch. So I still think the Bills are better. They're going to come in and they're going to win this game probably by 10 points or so. Maybe it has potential to blow out material, but I think this is a game that the Bills really, really need to win.
Complete agreement. This is one of the games that I expect the Bills to win. If you can't beat Tennessee, you're going to have some issues on the rest of the schedule. So I definitely have the Bills defeating the Titans, although I do think they're a little bit more interesting with some of the new guys that they've added to their offense, including Pollard and Boyd and obviously Ridley. So right now at this point, I have the Bills at 5-2. You have the Bills at 4-3. We're getting close to the midway point of the season. Next week, October 27th, on the road in Seattle. How do you see it going?
That's a win. I mean, Seattle's, they're not a bad football team. They're going through some changes themselves. Pete Carroll's now out the door, so it's a situation where I just think the Bills are better. I get they're going to the West Coast. That's a part of it. But this is a game that the Bills should have covered. They just can't lose the game. Let's just phrase it that way.
Yeah, completely agree. James, thanks for the comment. Brutal schedule. Yeah, I don't know what else you say about this schedule. It's a very brutal schedule. It's very difficult. You play two teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. You play another team that was in the NFC Championship that could have gotten to actually, no. You play all four teams that were in the championship games last year. That's how do you get any tougher than that? You play the Super Bowl champion, the Super Bowl runner-up, the NFC runner-up, the AFC runner-up. You still play in a division that had the Miami Dolphins as one of the better teams. You play the much improved AFC South. So this is a brutal schedule. I am in complete agreement, James. I'm not even going to really spend time talking about Seattle. If we're being real, it's probably one of the easier games on the Bills' schedule this year. Traveling to the West is never a fun thing to do, but this is a rebuilding Seahawks team, new head coach in the building. The Bills are going to win that game. So through 8 games, I have them at 6-2. You have them at 5-3. So that would be, I think, a solid midway point of the season. Obviously, if they're 6-2, they're going to be contending for one of the top spots in the conference. Even at 5-3, you'd have to think in solid divisional AFC East divisional spot at that point in time, especially heading into this next, I guess, the last tough stretch of their season to start the second half, which will have November 10th on the road against Indy. Interesting team, in my opinion. Anthony Richardson coming back, a team that was a surprise contender, had a chance to make the playoffs before losing to Houston in the regular season finale on Saturday Night Football last year. This is a game that I'm going to pick the Bills, but I'm really intrigued to see what type of Indy team we see this year. Will Richardson be able to take them to that next level, or will he go through growing pains as a second-year quarterback that really didn't get a lot of reps last year?
When he played, he was a dude. He was your dual threat quarterback, and there's so much potential in that guy still. I really, really wish he played the full year last year because you really would have been able to have a better grasp of what he is as a quarterback. But they're no slouch either. I think the Colts are going to be a team that's going to be in the running for your wild card, if not the division. So I think this is a game where the Bills it's going to be a battle from the start to end. And that's kind of what represents the Bills' schedule this year. If they're going to get in the playoffs, they're going to be battle tested. And I think this is a part of the game that adds to that resume. And I think the Bills get a win here over the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts they're a tough team for me because I always dog the AFC South as being the weakest division in the AFC. It's always soft in my opinion. Now maybe the NFC South is weaker, but you look at the AFC South right now, it doesn't look that bad. Now that Houston looks like they're an up and comer, now that Jacksonville had a free agent frenzy, you look at the AFC South and you figure now that a team like Indy might be ready to compete, and you still have Tennessee, who they're not going to be good, but let's be real, they don't look like a crappy team.
They can steal a game.
Yeah, so this Indy game actually has a lot of intrigue. I'm going to pick the Bills to get the win. So I'm at 7-2. I don't feel like they're actually going to be 7-2. This is why the picking game by game is such an interesting exercise because it makes you play probabilities. And I still think looking at the Bills' schedule, they're still better than all these teams. But inevitably, they're going to lose some of these games that I expect them to win. And they might win some games I expect them to lose. So 7-2, 6-3. And this is where the most brutal two-game stretch of the Bills' schedule. Back-to-back, you have Kansas City bye week, then San Fran. Luckily for the Bills, they're both at home. But how do you have the biggest game of the year, the Kansas City matchup, 425 Orchard Park, right a week before Thanksgiving? How do you have that going down? Because these regular season games, the Bills normally take care of business against Kansas City, but Bills fans haven't seen a win over the Chiefs at home in I don't even know how many years.
That's a great point, Bunny. And I think, I think the role is going to reverse a little bit here. I have the Chiefs coming into Orchard Park. I have them taking a win here. I think they've done some really nice things here in the offseason. And the Bills, it's such a weird relationship the Bills have with the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs are kind of in a similar spot as the Bills rebuilded. We're kind of like we're like last year's Chiefs, I'd say. So this is going to be a great game. Obviously, this is a game I look forward to, one of the most out of the whole season. Two of the best in the absolute league in Mahomes and Allen. But I think Mahomes is going to take this one. And we'll see how it turns out if both teams get to the playoffs and if they meet each other.
So for me, I told you I already have them at 7-2. That means I have to start picking some losses. And inevitably, KC is going to be that loss. But hell, if I told you the Bills lose in the regular season to Kansas City, but then they win in the playoffs, would you care? No, you would take it in a second because it means winning when it matters. I'm so tired of these regular season Chiefs contests. They inflate my confidence in the Bills every single year, only to disappoint me when it matters the most. Do I really think it matters a ton what happens in this game? I don't know. Maybe if there's seeding on the line, but we saw last year, even when the Bills had home field advantage, it didn't make a difference against the Chiefs when it mattered the most. I'm going to give Kansas City the win in this game, more so because I do think there is a lot of changes going on with the Bills defense. Obviously, they're still returning Milano, Bernard. They didn't have either in the playoff game, so that could make a difference in this game. But having a new pair of safeties back, they're no longer having Poyer and Hyde. I do think that makes a difference against one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and Pat Mahomes. Will guys like Cole Bishop and Mike Edwards, Taylor Rapp, will they be able to confuse Mahomes? I doubt it, in my opinion. And then when you're looking at the corner play, obviously I love Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. Will they be able to play at an elite level? Injury issues could be a concern once again. The Bills, I don't think they have the same amount of depth that they've had in the past. So I'm going to have to give the Bills a loss to Kansas City. I have them now at 7-3 through 10 games. You have them at 6-4. Bye week after that, which probably is a good time to have a bye week in mid-November. Get some rest, take a break after the Kansas City game, enjoy your Thanksgiving, and then another huge contest at home, Sunday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, who probably should have won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills know what they got coming here. They got a tough start to the year. They got a extremely difficult middle pack of the year, and then it gets a little easier as the season goes on. But if you lose to the Chiefs, you absolutely can't come out of the bye flat. And I think this is a game where they come out rolling and they win a game here in a much needed fashion against the San Francisco 49ers. And if they don't, I had them. I'd have them 6-5. So this is almost a must-win turning point of the season. And I feel the Bills are going to come out. They know the stakes of the game. They play the best when pressure's on in the regular season. But I think this is a game that they take over the 49ers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what do you have them at right now? You have them at 7-4. That's the record you have. So yes. I am going to go 49ers. And it's not that I don't think the Bills can win this game. I absolutely think they can. But if there was one thing the Bills have been weak against in recent years, it's their run defense at times. And going up against Christian McCaffrey and one of the best scheming offensive coaches in football, and Kyle Shanahan, I think this could be a very difficult evening for the Bills defense. Like I said, Bills can compete with anybody. As long as you have Josh Allen, you can go toe-to-toe. You can make this a shootout. But I do think this could be a long night for the Bills defense overall, because even if you go all out, what I've seen in the past with the Bills, when they go up against some of these great running teams, they kind of go all out to stop the run, and they dare them to throw. Well, if you're daring Brock Purdy to throw and he has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, assuming he's still on the 49ers, could be a long day for the secondary, especially with some of the new pieces in the Bills secondary. So, not that the Bills can't win it, but I feel like a wimp right now. I'm picking them to lose all of these important games: Baltimore, Kansas City, now San Fran. So I have them with a loss there. So that drops them to 7-4 on my schedule. We finally caught up. Carson, after the start, you had them with the rough start. I had them with the great start. But now after 2 back-to-back losses, we both have them at 7-4, going on the road against the LA Rams, a team that made the playoffs last year, but not sure they're as good as some of the other teams on the Bills schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like they overperformed last year. Like the expectation coming into the year was like, okay, McVay can win you some games, like 8-9, 9-8, 10-7 at best. Kind of feels the same way this year. Like, it's another team that the Bills are just better than on paper at the moment, and I still feel that the Bills are gonna beat the Rams here. And it's been a team that Josh Allen seems to play well, extremely, extremely well against. So I think that's going to continue, and I think Josh is going to lead the boys to victory here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't even need to spend too much time. The Bills are better than the Rams. LA has been solid in the past, but they don't seem like a team that has I don't want to say explosiveness. They obviously have a lot of great talent. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford still. But I just don't see the Rams in the same caliber as what the Bills have. So I'm going to give the Bills a win. Both of us have them at 8-4 right now. Then on the road against Detroit, another tough matchup, a 4:25 game, which is interesting because this is not a Thanksgiving game. This is not a West Coast game. This is a 4:25 game at Detroit between the Bills and the Lions. It is, I love it because I think it just shows how far both franchises have come that they could give the Bills the primary 4:25 game on a Sunday between the two Great Lake teams. To me, it's kind of like the ultimate irony. Like if the Bills and Lions would ever play in the Super Bowl and have the America watching them, it would almost feel like a joke, but at the same time, it'd be like a fun joke to see. What do you think is going to go down with this game?
Let's just say the soul of Ralph Wilson is just going to be absolutely smiling on this one. So I feel, I mean, both of these teams, you brought it, like both these teams have come so far. But the Lions, they were on an absolute tear last year. I expect that to continue this year. I have the Lions holding their own here, and I have them coming out in a really, really close game that they end up pulling away at the very end. And the Bills are going to have to reflect on that going into the postseason, as the next 3 opponents after that are less competitive, in my opinion. So it's going to be a tough game. That's a game that really can go any other way, but I have the Lions coming out just in the very end.
So this is where it gets interesting, because if the Bills do fall to 8-5, like what you have them predicted right now, there will be a legitimate race for the AFC East at the end, assuming that one team doesn't just blow everything away and get off to like a 14-3 record or a 13-4 record. If they're at 8-5, conceivably the AFC East will be a wide open race at that point in time. And based on my previous predictions with Baltimore, Kansas City, San Fran, you're probably thinking right now it's time. Mike's going to pick a Lions win. But I'm not going that way. The Bills are going to beat the Lions. The Bills are going to go to Detroit, and they're going to tell them what's up. And I wish I could give you a great rational reason why. I just feel it in my gut. I feel like indoor game, you're going to see Josh Allen go out there, and he's going to make the plays to become victorious. The Lions, I respect them a ton. Very fun team to watch. Quality run game with Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, Montgomery back there as well. St. Brown, a great receiver, just got a deserved extension. So the Lions are one of the funnest teams of football right now. Talk about maybe the top young tight end battle in the NFL. Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, both dueling it out to try to show who's better going forward. I think this is going to be a fun one. Probably one of the most exciting games on the schedule, but the Bills are going to find a way to win. So I'm going to have them at 9-4. You have them at 8-5. And then you got a 3-game stretch right here against the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots. And I'm really hating myself right now for this prediction because I told myself going into today, I'm picking 11-6. And when I'm at 9-4, and I have the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots, and I already picked the Jets to beat the Bills once, I don't know how I get to where I need to be with my prediction. I'm going to have some record out there, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but we're going to just stick with it. Like I said, you're at 8-5. I'm at 9-4. Patriots at home, December 22nd. I think I know what way you're going here.
Yeah, Drake May is going to have a really, really tough time if he's the one starting and healthy here. Sean McDermott feasts just almost like how Bill Belichick feasted on rookie quarterbacks. It's going to be a tough one for Drake. Big fan of his coming up to the draft. It's just welcome to Highmark Stadium, and the Bills will feast on this, even though there's a new safeties, new corners. The roster is completely changed. I still have the Bills confusing Drake May here. They're going to sputter on offense. Pats, they know they're rebuilding. The Bills got to come out with this one. They have to.
100%. So weird. Twice in the final 3 games of the season, you're playing the Patriots. I don't know if I love that or if I hate it. I guess if the Bills are in some trouble and they need to get some wins down the stretch, I'll appreciate it at that point, feeling like, okay, we got a couple wins here. Thank goodness. But it would have been nice to balance it out a little bit and have one of those early in the season to get to improve the record. But yeah, I can't pick the Bills to lose to the Patriots. Their win total, I think their over-under is around 4.5 right now. So Vegas thinks the Patriots are just awful. And I know they have a good defense. They give Josh Allen problems, but the defensive master is gone. Bill Belichick is no longer there. I have to see it before I believe it with their new coaching staff taking over and to see if they're actually going to be able to continue their ways defensively going forward. So I have the Bills winning. So now 10-4 for me. You have them at 9-5. The Jets, the second to last week of the season. Is that going to be another win?
This right here, I'm high on the Jets this season. I think this is a game that's going to come down to who's going to win the division ultimately. Aaron Rodgers will be making his first appearance in the stadium. I think the Bills in my mock here, the Bills already lost once of them. They're not going to lose again. The Jets have, like I said, given us fits, but I feel the Bills are going to come make some adjustments after the first time around, and they perform well under pressure. I think this is a game that they need to win if they want to keep that divisional streak alive. And I think they do. And I think they win big.
So at this point, you have 5 losses, right? You're at 11-5 at this point. I'm 11-4 going into this Jets game.
Yes,
dude,
sir.
The game is going to matter to both teams, in my opinion.
Yes.
I can't pick the Bills to get swept by the Jets. I can't do it. So I'm going to give the Bills the victory, but I feel weird right now that I'm at 12-4. It doesn't feel realistic. Did we skip the second Miami game? The game in
we did.
We did. Okay, so maybe. So you know what? That is where I'm going to. We're not going to go deep into it. I'm going to pick a loss for the Bills against Miami at home November 3rd to make me feel a little bit better. So going into the final Patriots game of the year, I have the Bills at 11-5 through 16 games. What do you have going for that Miami game? Just briefly, because we accidentally skipped over it.
Fans are going to have to come to town. Weather is just going to be starting to turn it to turn. The leaves are going to be falling. That means the Fins struggle. Bills win.
It's crazy. We have had opposite predictions for like half these games, and yet through 16 games, we both have the Bills at 11-5. The over or under this year was 10.5. And I've been telling everybody, I think Vegas is trying to bait people with that 10.5 because a lot of the general public, they're down on the Bills with all of these guys that are gone, including Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Mitch Morse. So there's a lot of people that are going to look at the Bills and they're going to say they're going to be bad this year. Vegas wants everybody, in my opinion, to put money on the Bills under because Vegas thinks they're going to be a solid team going forward. So we both have them at the over right now at 11-5, entering the final game of the season against New England. I'll end the suspense. I have this as a win as long as this game matters. If this game has divisional implications, if this game has seeding implications, the Bills will win. If the game has nothing on the line, I guess they could bench their starters. And who even knows if New England would want to win in that scenario? They still might want to lose for draft situations and scenarios. So how do you have that game going to wrap things up?
We'll keep it to 2 words. Bills win.
So at the end of the day, I have them at 12-5. You have them at 12-5.
Yes.
We got there very differently. How do you feel about how does 12-5 resonate with you right now? Last year, 11-6. 2 years ago, 13-3. Obviously, didn't have the one game because of what happened on Monday Night Football against Cincinnati. Does 12-5 sound realistic to you, or even probable after going through game by game?
It sounds realistic. Of course, it might be a little biased, but I think there's no reason why the Bills can't win 12 games this year. To me, the regular season just doesn't matter. Just give me to the playoffs one way or another. That's the absolute bare minimum. I just don't want to see another Control-C, Control-V out of this team where they lose in the divisional or the conference. I'm okay with the conference. I'm not okay with the divisional this year. It's just too many times the same things happened. I'm comparing it right now to the Toronto Maple Leafs of how you get to a certain point compared to expectations every year and you flounder. The Bills can't have this happen this year. Otherwise, changes I think would have to be made. And just get me in the offs, bare minimum, and let's make a run. That's how I view this season. You got to make a run.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of pressure on the Bills this year because if they lose in the divisional round or sooner once again, this fan base is about to lose it. And while there might be some people that are down on the Bills, I definitely don't think most of Bills Mafia is down on the Bills. Most people still expect them to be a playoff team, win the division, and have a run. 12-5 feels kind of spot on. I joked before the show that I said going back to December that I was going to pick the Bills to go 12-5 this year. And I remember having some discussions with friends, and they're like, "You're going to pick the Bills to go 12-5 next year? You don't even know who's on the team." I'm like, "I don't care who's on the team. They have Josh Allen. They're going to go 12-5." And they asked me, "How can you safely say that?" I'm like, because they went 11. Well, at this point, when I made that prediction, the Bills were still at like a 25% chance of making the playoffs last season at that point when I said it. So maybe it was a little crazy at that point in time. But my reasoning was they're not going to lose all these one-score games with all these crazy things happening. They're gonna revert back to the mean, which in their with their luck would be going upwards a little bit and getting a little bit better. And that's how I got to 12-5. Going into this exercise, I thought I was going to probably pick 11-6. But after going through these games, I think I was more than fair. I picked the Bills to lose against the Ravens, Kansas City, the Jets on Monday Night Football, the Dolphins. So splitting against the Jets and Dolphins, having them lose against Baltimore, KC, and San Fran, and still getting to 12-5, I have the Bills taking care of the teams they should beat. Now, inevitably, if the Bills lose to some of these games, like Arizona or Seattle or the Rams, they're going to have to win against some of these better teams in order to get to that record. But I definitely think 12-5 is in play. I predict them to win the AFC East again. And you know what? I'll say it. AFC Championship game this year. I can't pick them to be in the Super Bowl until they actually show to me that they can get to the Super Bowl. But I'll say this. The last 2 years, last year I picked the Bills 11-6, and I picked them to go to the AFC Championship. They were 11-6, AFC Divisional. The year before, I said 13 wins. They won 13. I've done this every year since maybe I was like 17 years old. I am normally within one win of their final record almost all the time. I think there's been like 1 or 2 seasons that I've been off by more than one game with their final record, going back like 15 years. So 12-5 might be a little bold, but I definitely see it within the realm of possibility.
100%. Anything's possible. It's the NFL. Could the Bills end up flipping this and go 5-12? Who really knows?
Let's pray that doesn't happen.
let's pray that does not happen. Otherwise, there actually will be changes. But It's such a complicated scenario. It's the NFL. Anything can change. Who gets hurt? Who doesn't get hurt? There's still a lot of time. Teams could make trades, sign veteran free agents, cut some people. There could be a few retirements. You never know. So take it one day at a time at this point. The Cards, we got them week 1. Let's focus on them, and we'll take it one game at a time, check back at it, and we'll see how this one goes. Who knows how it'll turn out, but all I know is this is a go Bills. So
yeah, completely agree. And before we wrap up, we've been going at this for nearly an hour. I appreciate you being on the show with me, Carson. Make sure if you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, whether you're watching on Trainwreck, on Twitter, YouTube, whatever platform. If you're watching on Bunt Takes, please like the video and subscribe to our channels. Every like and subscription helps us a ton, and we really, really do appreciate it. I'm going to let you wrap up, Carson, before I give my final takes. What are your final thoughts, conclusion to this schedule show today? What do you want to say to wrap the show up?
Hey, you win that game in Miami last year. You win the division. You know the schedule is going to be more difficult for you. You get your number 1 schedule. You play four teams who made the conference championship last year. If you're going to make it to the playoffs, you're going to have a lot of success against teams that are extremely difficult. You're going to be battle tested. You're going to have some battle scars, and you're going to be so prepared for the playoffs that probably the most prepared for a playoffs one of these Bills teams under McDermott has ever been. So who says, why not the Bills this year? Why not the Buffalo Bills? You got Josh Allen. You got some youth. Where's the potential end? Where does the potential end? It's a new leadership. It's a new era. Let's go. Go Bills.
I love it. And this is how I will end things today. We spend the entire offseason improving this team, making moves to try to get this Bills team to where it needs to be to contend for a championship. Well, the Bills management does. Obviously, us as fans, we do our own mock decisions and what we want to see and so forth. And then this is the next milestone date after the draft and before mini camp and training camp takes place. This is the day where it finally all comes together with the schedule, and you can finally go game by game and kind of vision in your head, how is the season going to play out? 5 primetime games, a mix of Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night. There's more 1:00 games next year. There's a lot of great competition. Being able to play the 4 teams that represented the AFC and NFC in the championship games last year is an incredible challenge, but it's also an incredibly exciting opportunity for the Bills to really show the rest of the NFL where they stack up. If the Bills do well in those games, we will definitely know heading into the playoffs that this team has what it takes to compete for a Super Bowl. Now, if they struggle in those games and they can't keep up or they lose all 4 of those, we'll know that there needs to be more serious tweaks going forward. I think this is a defining season for Sean McDermott as head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I've been patient with him, but time with Josh Allen, you don't get unlimited time. Eventually, you have to make things work in the playoffs. And I truly do think the Bills have the ability to make a run this year. 12-5 would be a tremendous season. Get to the AFC Championship. Honestly, I think they could win the Super Bowl, but first just get to the AFC Championship and see what happens. But Carson, like I said, great show today, man. I know this is the first time you and I have been on this together. Loved your input. Had a great time on the Pay the Bills podcast. Brought to you by Outlet Liquor. Probably should mention Outlet Liquor even more. Thank you for sponsoring the Pay the Bills podcast and everything that you guys do for Trainwreck Sports. But that'll do it for this episode, and we can't wait to see you guys all throughout the off season as mini camp is nearly here. Then it's going to be training camp, preseason, a lot to talk about on the Pay the Bills podcast. So thank you, Carson. Thank you to everyone watching, and go Bills.